Hello there, welcome to Showcase. It's no secret that Istanbul is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And naturally, people tend to snap lots of photographs of the city. But some artists have zoomed in closer to uncover some hidden details. This isn't a regular Istanbul photo exhibition. So, visitors won't only see the bridges, shores, landmarks, or mosques. Istanbuls Today instead offers them something more recent and perhaps something more real.
Our intention was not to show the beauties of the city because it has been shown many times throughout the history, and somehow we wanted to show some other aspects of the city, not only the beauties but other aspects.
So curators Serdar Darendeliler and Refik Akyüz brought together works by 11 photographers who focus on the city with which they profess to have a love-hate relationship. The exhibition at the Para Museum demonstrates how contemporary photographers captured moments from the lives of immigrants and locals, as well as the challenges, gentrification, and urban transformation of the city. And one of the photographers, Erdem Varol, says he chases to tell stories around complexity, ambiguity, and metaphors.
I think that this exhibition shows Istanbul in a very transparent, calm, and simple way, with all photographers providing their own narratives. But of course, those photos aren't enough to reflect all of Istanbul. A photograph of the city is produced millions of times every day, every hour. This is just a selection from photographers working on Istanbul.
Varol's journey started after he read John Berger's Ways of Seeing and explored photography as his medium of storytelling. Now he calls himself an Istanbul photographer as he has been capturing the city for more than a decade.
I love Istanbul very much. It's pleasant to walk in the city because it inspires. There really is a different story in every corner. If your perception is open, it's likely to see it. And that creates these photos as a result of good encounters and sometimes bad or strange.
Istanbuls Today will run until the end of April for visitors who want to take a closer peek at the city and meet its contemporary narrators. Esra Dürüst, TRT World. When France colonized Benin in the late 19th century, it looted thousands of cultural artifacts. A handful of those pieces were recently returned to Africa, and now they are part of a new exhibition. In 2021, France returned 26 artifacts from Benin, which include wooden statues, royal thrones, and sacred altars. These archaeological treasures are now the highlight of an exhibition in the Moroccan capital called Benin Art of Yesterday and Today, From Restitution to Revelation. But new artworks are also in the limelight.
These pieces are organized into three main sections representing Beninese culture in general, the sources of this culture, and how the prevailing beliefs and religion in Benin dominated the general perception of the artists.
The show explores works by 34 major and emerging artists to illustrate the contemporary art scene of Benin and its diaspora. And the 100 modern artworks vary from videos and installations to sculptures and paintings.
Pas du tout ce que j'attendais.
It is not at all what I expected as an exhibition, so I'm delighted with this discovery. I expected a classical exhibition of masks, ceremonial costumes. We see here the work of young artists, full of audacity.
The exhibition in Morocco's Mohammed VI Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is a continuation of a show organized in Benin that displays the Beninese cultural heritage. And perhaps more interestingly, it showcases the harmony of Benin's art between works made centuries ago and others that reflect on the modern journey of the West African nation. Slovakian artist Maria Bartuszova had little opportunity to exhibit her art during her lifetime. But now, London's Tate Modern wants to make sure she gets the recognition she deserves.
This artwork made from plaster and string isn't well recognised in the UK, and nor is its creator. But Tate Modern wants to change that. That's why it invites people to visit the first ever major exhibition in the country dedicated to Maria Bartusova's work.
It's a 30-year career survey spanning works from the early 60s to the late 80s and really explores her continual experimentation to find a new sculptural language. And you'll see in the exhibition that her primary medium was plaster, which is a liquid material, very malleable. She had to work quickly and inventively.
Many of her larger pieces were state public commissions, because government buildings at the time had to include public art. But while this official patronage kept her working, being an artist came with its challenges.
She worked with certain political constraints because she lived in the former Eastern Bloc. She wrote in her journals about the difficulty she experienced living in a totalitarian regime and artists unable to express themselves fully. She also lived away from the centre, which at the time was Prague, and lived in an industrial city of Košice. So she had a relatively secluded life, also to do with her own personality.
Bartusova's work became better known after she died in 1996. Slowly but surely, her work kept gaining more respect. And this exhibition is part of the gallery's efforts to highlight important female artists. Art critic Tabish Khan welcomes the initiative.
You should be showing us the established artists, but also introducing us to new names through art history that may have been forgotten. And right now it's very important that we've seen lots of collections sharing female artists who haven't been brought to the limelight. So this is a chance to discover a new female artist that a lot of visitors will not have come across.
And the chance to learn more about Bartuszova will be available at Tate Modern until mid-2023.
The traditional art of paper mache in Kashmir is disappearing, but a local couple is working hard to protect it against advancing technologies.
In 2011, I made a bowl which I sent for state award selections, and I got an award for that. I made a jewelry box in 2012 and got an award for that too. Then I made a wall hanging and got an award for it in 2016. I have received 3 awards.
I want to urge people to start practicing this art with their family members. Support your family to honor and keep this art alive.
One of Morocco's oldest museums has reopened after a major makeover. With a new name and look, it offers visitors a chance to experience the country's cultural heritage like never before.
This place used to be a princely residence in the 17th century. Then it was turned into a museum in 1915. It was once called Udaya, but now, after a 2-year renovation, it's been renamed as the National Finery Museum.
The restoration and rehabilitation of the building aim to meet all the appropriate standards for the approval of the museum displays, and also receive offers, both at the national and international levels, while respecting the building's characteristics.
From jewelry to costumes, bags, belts and shoes, 8,000 objects are on display, including items Morocco's King Mohammed VI, gifted from his collection.
We can learn about the history of jewelry, the tools of jewelry making and their development, the history of Moroccan costumes, and the most important locations where they were made, as well as men's and women's urban and rural jewelries and their regional characteristics.
But it's this item that steals the show. Known as the Bismoon necklace, it's the oldest piece of jewelry in the world.
It dates back 150,000 years. It was discovered in recent excavations in Bismoon Cave near Essaouira. Thanks to it, we can start the investigative path and learn about the development of historical jewelry.
Since its reopening, the museum has welcomed more than 10,000 daily visitors, and it hopes to play a crucial part in both promoting and preserving Moroccan cultural heritage.
A visually impaired British artist makes Braille-inspired works. He is racing against time to produce as much art as possible until he loses his sight completely.
Clark Reynolds was born with limited sight, which he has now almost completely lost. His declining vision has led him to become a full-time artist. Reynolds now makes art that anyone, sighted or unsighted, can enjoy.
Obviously, when I learnt Braille 3 years ago, it was like, how can I make it accessible for everyone? And it was like, well, Braille is not meant to be seen. And then I had the idea about giving it colour. And behind you, you know, they look something out of very pop-arty, but the idea, the colours aren't random. So what I did, I looked at the commonality of letters appearing in words, then used colour theory. So they weren't just random colours I plucked out of the air.
The Power of Touch is on display at Qantas Gallery in London, and they're happy to provide Reynolds a platform.
There's obviously many blind artists, in the world, but of course, how many of those are being able to be given a voice and to be recognised as a standalone artist? I think there's a big stigma behind, whether or not an artist should have some kind of a platform, whether they're blind or have a disability of some kind.
Reynolds breaks down barriers even further by inviting visitors to touch the art and experience the sensory aspect of his work.
You have to think of different ways of seeing, and being able to touch it is really nice because you're so used to going to galleries and it's like, don't touch anything. So that's been, really good as well. And I like that there's the coloured bits here, and then there's bits that don't use colour, and then there's the bit in the dark room. Yeah, it's a really good mix of kind of like different sensory things. Really enjoy it.
Reynolds is optimistic about his future, but he's not fully confident it will always be as bright as it is now.
No one is doing what I'm doing, so the future is bright on that scale, I know I'm going to provide a safe haven for my family. But the future is looking dark because I'm going blind, I maybe another couple of years left of the sight that I've got left, and it will be how do I do my art? So I'm thinking of ways now, that creative ways of me still producing my art.
Running out of time, or even worse, sight, could be paralyzing for many, but for Reynolds it seems to be the force that drives his grit even further.
Donald Duck may be the most famous beaked animal in comic books, but another member of his species, Howard the Duck, is just as important. Alican now explains how through bold satire, he brought the counterculture movement to comics in the 1970s and gave it a political cutting edge.
In the original series, Howard the Duck and his friend Beverly tried to survive in 1970s capitalist America. Howard does go on fantastic adventures, but it's really an excuse to comment on social issues such as violence, gender inequality, and poverty.
Governor Carter, were you really personally angry?
The character is highly political, so much so that Marvel Comics said it would be registering Howard as a candidate in the 1976 presidential election against Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford. This flavor comes from writer Steve Gerber. His counterculture ideals turned Howard into a stand-in for the cynical outsider. Gerber's argument was that with his comics, readers were able to identify with the real people problems his character underwent. He believed similar themed TV programs didn't really provide such personal connection. That, coupled with acclaimed characterizations, made the comic a fan favorite.
He has everything except fulfillment.
And as we all know, where there's fanfare, there is money to be made. So Hollywood came knocking. The Lucasfilm adaptation had the cynicism all right, but out went politics and the social commentary. The movie tanked. Gerber was also unhappy with not having ownership over his creation. That would eventually lead to the Gerber versus Marvel case. And now, 50 years on, Howard's original run stands as proof that there can always be more to duck humor than meets the ear.
What happens when an art superstar and a fashion icon work together? Well, an exhibition called Picasso Chanel explores that very question.
Pablo Picasso's paintings and Coco Chanel's designs are side by side at Madrid's Thyssen-Bornemisza Museum. The show reveals how the Cubist master's art became infused with the designer's ideas for texture and form. The two first met in the spring of 1917 and became close friends. They worked together on two occasions, one being for playwright Jean Cocteau's Antigone. While Picasso made the curtains and masks for the show, Chanel took care of the costumes. The Cubist aesthetic in her early designs could be seen in her use of geometrical shapes and preference for black, white and beige.
In fact, it happens that at the same time Cubism is also interested in monochrome, in the broken line, in geometry, in the redefinition of perspective. So I would say that the common point is Chanel's intense preoccupation of movement and the Cubism movement. That's what brings them together.
They also collaborated in the ballet called The Blue Train in 1924. Chanel designed costumes for the dancers inspired by the sport outfits she created for herself and for her clients. At the time, bathing and outdoor life were also featured in Picasso's artworks.
During the war, she designed her first clothes. She designed those for the beach. She took inspiration from both outdoor clothing and also from work clothes. And that's, once again, freeing the female body from shackles, from too tight clothes strangled at the waist.
This exhibition can be seen until mid-January, but the effects of this collaboration between the iconic designer and art master will probably keep showing up in fashion, whether we notice it or not.
Nigerian artist Malik Afekboa is using artificial intelligence to reimagine elderly African people who he says are often marginalized, strutting on the catwalk. Angelo Kamado reports.
White-haired men and women strut down the catwalk in the latest fashions. But this is not real life. These hyper-realistic images have been created using artificial intelligence by a Nigerian artist. Malik Afekboa was first inspired to reimagine the roles of elderly African people after his mother fell ill.
paintings. I wanted to see them in a different space. And what inspired that was my personal relationship with my mom as well. So I wanted to see, always, imagine the elderly people in a place that is not either in a sad space or in a suppressed state.
The artist and filmmaker says the work is a response to the marginalization of many elderly African people in society, especially in the fashion world.
Their history speaks a lot for us that we need to learn from to know where we're going to. So why don't we tap into that?
Afebua's images, which form his Elders series, have been widely shared on social media. As well as the catwalk, they also feature settings ranging from the beach to the boxing gym, as he seeks to showcase a brighter side of getting old.
A Japanese artist has created realistic daily objects, so realistic that some might find them charming, while others quite simply gross. Let's take a look. Are these creepy or cute? Well, people have mixed opinions.
It's a bit weird. It's like so realistic that definitely takes you by surprise. But it's really cool, yeah. I feel it's too real. I feel a bit gross. But no, it's really cool, yeah.
Drawing from horror and sci-fi films, Japanese artist and DJ Masataka Shishido first created a flashy MIDI pad controller as an artwork for his 2017 album. But his fascination with human flash-like objects has since grown.
I was inspired by a movie called The Fly, which is about a human being merging with a fly. I think it was really cool to merge things together. That's why I wanted to combine daily objects with human flesh.
So he produced a series of artistic pieces, including a finger stamp and USB, a coin purse shaped like a human's mouth, an eye dice that has a realistic blinking function activated by a remote controller, and a human skin iPhone case.
Once people learned that it's a piece of art with some specific function, they started saying it's cute and interesting.
Shishido draws the design by hand and then takes it to a partner's studio. Then it takes about 1 to 2 months to turn the idea into a realistic artwork.
When I come up with an idea or design, I draw it on paper and take it to the studio jur. Based on my sketch, they will make a shape like this and pour silicone into the mold. After that, they will paint it or plant hair to fine-tune the work.
3 years ago, Shishido started selling his creations online, and among 30 types of flashy objects, the ones with facial expressions are the most popular. And people willing to pay around $4,000 prefer customized pieces with their own eyes replicated on the artwork. Now, Shishido hopes for an exhibition to showcase what some call his way too interesting artworks to larger crowds. Spain is where the guitar was born. Many of the country's family-run guitar workshops are still in high demand, with a clientele that includes the Rolling Stones and Ed Sheeran. And it's mostly because they don't miss a beat in paying attention to the smallest detail.
Mariano Conde is a fourth-generation artisan guitar maker whose Madrid studio has been around since 1915. He works with his son in crafting handmade classic guitars on demand for who he calls professional customers. Conde says their goal is to adapt the instrument to the touch of the person.
To do this, we choose materials. We measure keystrokes, string lengths. One string is better for one person and another for another. In other words, it's a very personalized assignment, and then we give them the sound they are looking for. If it's a guitarist of one style or another, we have to give them the sound they are after.
And the most important aspect is the wood, as it has to be dried for 30 to 50 years to achieve the desired sound. And that's exactly what this customer wants, a guitar that's unique to him.
Mariano's guitars facilitate your work. When you pick up the guitar, it gives you the comfort to express what you want to play. That doesn't usually happen with just any guitar, so that's where you can see the hidden work that goes into making it.
The whole process can take up to 6 months, but before the guitars are handed to customers, they're sent to Artisan Varnishes, another small family business also run by a father and son.
It is not only about making the guitar. You have to know how to apply the varnish. You also have to know how to give it a nice color. Here in this house, we make many types of handmade varnishes. But the acoustics is the most important thing. That is to say, we don't smear the guitar with varnish and we don't give it too much thickness. We have our own mixtures.
For these artisans, delivering the guitar to the customer is the most satisfying part of the job. They say witnessing the reaction of the client is like music to the ears.
That's it for this episode of Showcase. I'm Esra Dürüst from me and the whole team here in Istanbul. Thanks for watching and bye for now.